Top 10 most haunted hospital in the world. Have you ever been to the hospital? In hospital, there are many healing as well as the dead. But what if the patient who died don't want to leave the place where they breathe their last? In this video, Scary Avery featured top 10 most haunted hospital in the world, including Linda Vista Hospital, Northville State Hospital, Old CHANGI Hospital, and many more. If you have any experience about being haunted, write in the comment section and we will pick top experience to be featured in our next video. Get yourself ready to face your fear. Number 10. Santa Fe Coast Lines Hospital, Los Angeles. This hospital was originally opened in 1905 and today known as Linda Vista Hospital. A managed healthcare company purchased this hospital in 1980, but the facility struggled through the 80s. Overwhelmed with rising healthcare costs, the hospital emergency department was overtaxed by the aftermath of local gang wars, and the facility's death rate began to climb. There were rumors of negligent care, although the large number of gunshot wounds and stabbings likely affected the mortality statistic. Many have recalled seeing as many as 3 specters looming around the old halls of the hospital. One such spirit was one that belonged to a little girl who apparently died on the operating table. Fittingly enough, she would usually be seen in the surgical room. Another spirit that seems to be making rounds was one of an elderly who worked at the hospital for many years before dying unexpectedly. The other was to be a young man who would pace on the 3rd floor of the hospital. There are many rooms in this mental hospital. Dare to visit all? Number 9. Rolling Hills Asylum, New York. People visit this place with many reasons. Some describe a magnetism, others say curious to prove the paranormal activity there. Established in 1827, the Genius Country Poorhouse soon became a refuge for some of society less fortunate. Widows and orphans mingled with the mentally ill, and unclaimed dead were buried on the property. Strange things also happened in this video. First, the audio evidence from Rolling Hill Asylum.
Can you go down and help my friend in that wheelchair again? She needs a little help.
The second, as you can see, a pink hairbands flying out nowhere. This reinforced the suspicion that there are other creatures beside them at that time. And with over 1,700 documented deaths and hundreds not recorded, it's no wonder Haunted North America rated as the 2nd most haunted site in the United States. Number 8. TRANS-ALLEGHENY Lunatic Asylum, West Virginia. The building opened its door to mentally ill patients in 1864 as the Western States Hospital. As mental illness were not well understood, the hospital held more patients than it was equipped for. Patients were forced to live in unsanitary quarters, were often malnourished, and received questionable medical treatment. Many rumors about this hospital has been spread, such as the patients are common to be restrained and receive electroshock therapy or even lobotomies. Many visitors have claimed to communicate with a spirit named Lily, although Lily's history is a mystery. Many have felt her presence at the asylum and allege she communicates with visitors by interacting with toys in the room dedicated to her memory. Number 7. Penhurst Asylum, Pennsylvania. In 1908, the state of Pennsylvania built the school as an asylum for patients with special needs. Over 10,000 patients crossed through the doors into Penhurst, residing in one of the many buildings in the school network. Overwhelmed parents drop off their children who were mentally retarded or autistic, hoping the school would provide for them. But the sad truth is, there were very few doctors, nurses, and orderlies available to meet the patient need, and most of the patients were treated cruelly. Overworked staff respond to unruly patients by dragging them into submission or chaining them to their beds. Other residents were isolated for such long periods of time that they regressed and lost their will to speak, fight, or even to live. One particularly harsh rule chastises patients for biting. When a patient beat someone the first time, he or she was reprimanded. But if it happened again, the patient was sent to a dentist who would pull all of his teeth. Thousands of teeth were removed in a rusty dentist chair that still sits in the tunnels beneath the Penhurst complex. Number 6. Northville State Hospital, Michigan. Opened in 1952, Northville was one of the more modern mental hospitals in the United States at that time. Northville was an early promoter of art and music for treating patients who would practice playing musical instruments or performing in plays, as well as study trades or work in hospital facilities. People said that the patients were forced to sleep in hallways, were left with nothing to do but chain smoke and watch television all day, and were even subjected to attacks by staff members and other patients. But as priorities shifted, in the 1970s, Northville declined steadily, closing in the early 2000s. Many trespassers went to look for ghosts, and many reported hearing footsteps and voices, along with the sensation of someone breathing on them. Number 5. Yorktown Memorial Hospital, Texas. Founded by the religious group known as the Felician Sisters, they were part of the Roman Catholic Church in 1950. The Yorktown Memorial Hospital originally served as a rehabilitation center for those suffering from drug and alcohol abuse. During its time under the care of the nuns, the hospital was said to have lost over 500 patients in a 6-year span, a staggering number of fatalities for such a small building in such a small amount of time. It's no wonder it is said to be plagued by wandering the restless spirits today. Number 4. Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Kentucky. Opened in 1910 when an epidemic of tuberculosis was overtaking medical facilities in Kentucky, patients at Waverly could expect treatment that varied from balloons implanted in their lungs to the removal of ribs and chest muscle to allow for lung expansion. When the treatment didn't work, a handy 500-foot tunnel or body chute allowed personnel to discreetly send bodies down to be whisked away on waiting trains. Nowadays, the tunnel area is where the ghosts hang out, according to visitors to what is now a tourist attraction. They have also reported seeing ghosts of a nurse in room 502. What legend says is that a 26-year-old nurse hung herself from the light fixture in the room 502 and was unmarried and pregnant. Some said she took her life because she had an affair with the owner of the hospital and contracted tuberculosis. Some said she was desperate. With the whole scenario in the hospital, she couldn't take the death of so many patients, and thus she committed suicide. Dare to visit room 502? Number 3. Manteno State Hospital, Illinois. Manteno State Mental Hospital opened in December 1930 during the Great Depression, and it was a cutting-edge concept for the time. suffered a typhoid fever epidemic and more than 50 patients and staff members died. The hospital was later renamed the MANTENO Mental Health Center and it stopped operations in 1985. The complex then became business rentals, a bank, part of the Illinois University campus, and even a private residence. But witnesses have reported apparition of patients and nurses, and ghostly voices that come over the non-functional intercom system. Can you hear that?
Make sound.
Number 2. Whittingham Hospital, England. Whittingham Hospital was a psychiatric hospital in the parish of Whittingham, near Preston, Lancashire, England. It opened in 1873 as the 4th Lancashire Country Asylum and grew to be the largest mental hospital in Britain. However, in 1967, the hospital faced a controversy involving complaints of mistreatment in 2 male and 2 female wards in the St. Luke division, with the worst being in Ward 16 for women. Complaints were reported such as patients being locked in small rooms under staircase, in washrooms, and outside in the airing courts regardless of weather. Others include patients being dragged by their hair, a wet towel treatment, where a damp towel would be wrapped around the patient's neck to induce unconsciousness, nurses setting fire to a patient's clothing while worn, beatings, and vermin infestations. Today, if you visit this hospital, maybe some unpeaceful spirit may greet you. Number 1. Old CHANGI Hospital, Singapore. Located in Changi, Singapore, Changi Hospital was previously known as Royal Air Force Hospital and was merged with the Toa Payoh Hospital and renamed as the Changi General Hospital. After it was closed in 1997, it sat abandoned for over a decade, regarded as one of the most haunted places in Singapore. Old Changi Hospital was captured by Japanese force during World War II and was used as a healthcare facility for the prisoners of war detained at the Changi military base nearby. The uneasy feeling of the visitors was probably brought by those people who lost their lives in the hand of the Japs and are still seeking revenge up to this time. According to some, the terrifying moments, excitement, and adventures were not worth in exchange for what followed them home. What a poor soul. So guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And see our next video about top 10 most haunted beaches around the world. See ya!